May I come in, sir? Morning, sir. Afternoon.
Good afternoon. Have a seat.
Thank you.
NIVRANSHU.
Yes, sir.
Okay, NIVRANSHU. So you are from Jammu and Kashmir.
Yes, sir.
And your optional is political science and international
Yes, sir.
relations. You have done your graduation in computer science engineering.
Yes, sir.
You are a published author
Yes, sir.
and you are fond of reading books,
Yes, sir.
algorithms.
So I wrote a paper on genetic algorithms.
Okay. And playing guitar.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, NIVRANSHU, let me ask you at the outset. Article 370, what change has it made in the lifestyle of the people residing in Jammu and Kashmir?
So in terms of lifestyle, I would say that the governance vacuum that was there in the years, that has been resolved. So people have been more proactive in terms of filing complaints per se. But in terms of, accountability of governments and vying for their rights also, that has also changed. For instance, people have gone more tech savvy. Driving license, for example, application of that, Parivahan has been introduced and people are looking into that a lot. And then in terms of so new age technology, for example, Palli village in Samba, that was electrified with solar energy, 100%. So people got to know about that. So these are some of the changes in lifestyle.
So development and industrialization, it is going on for the better, improving the economy of the state.
So I
Now your union territory.
will be a bit hesitant to say that, because in terms of industry, the manufacturing has not been very well in terms of Jammu and Kashmir, but pharmacy as an industry has been very well doing. Some plants have been are started in Jammu also, and we used to have a plant in Samba district, but in Jammu there is one plant which is going to be built. So in terms of industries, I would say manufacturing something which is not very good. But
What about basic infrastructure? Has
Yes.
it improved?
It has, in terms of parks and recreation. I see more parks opening up. Then for amenities, for instance, water cooler were not there. And in sanitation also, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan has been doing very well.
If I ask you this question, the happiness index, insofar as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned, has it improved or has it gone down?
So in Jammu, it has improved, definitely.
has
But
improved.
I won't say so for Kashmir, sir.
Okay. All right. So, I wanted to ask you your opinion. The problems that we face in getting organs, you see, people who are wanting organs to be replaced, and it takes a very long time, sometime a waiting list for heart or a kidney.
Yes, sir.
So, do you think organ donation should be made compulsory in the country?
So I read a book once. It's on behavioral economics by Dan Ariely, and it uses nudge theory by Richard Thaler. That says that, for instance, organ donation, instead of making it compulsory, if you give a choice and introduce some of the cognitive psychology, for instance, if you pre-market as yes, people don't switch it to no. But if you pre-mark it as no in the form, people will keep it there. So if we use behavioral psychology and behavioral economics in this direction, I think that would be a good source. But then if we make it compulsory, I think it won't gel well with the democracy, sir.
Okay. Now, what do you understand by the term soft power?
So soft power is, so it's a way to co-opt with your opponents instead of coercing them. It's a psychological and a normative use of power instead of a physical or more materialistic use of power. For instance, in terms of India or any country, culture is a very big part of soft power. The diaspora that you have, that's a big sort of soft power, sir.
Okay, my final question to you would be, and there is a concept which is emerging now, which is called as BNPL. Do you know what is the meaning of this BNPL?
I'm sorry, sir.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
tell you. Buy now and pay later.
Sir, yes, sir.
Okay. Now, what are the pros and cons of this buy now and pay later?
So, first of all, honoring the contract. a lot of times people will not be able to honor it. Sometimes people, for instance, peer-to-peer lending is a form of buy now, pay later. So a lot of people in Andhra Pradesh, they were not honoring their commitments, and we had to see a lot of suicides also when they had to extract the money back. Then, sir, sometimes with respect to the startup culture, where you kind of pump the money first, and then when it's time to harvest it back, you don't have enough. And then again, sir, in terms of business kind of rationality, sometimes it's not very, what should I say, implementable in the long run. So this would be my hesitant, I would say, opinion.
Okay.
On being.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
NIVRANSHU, you are a computer.
So I'm an MBA and computer science engineering, sir. Graduate, sir.
Okay. What is cloud computing?
So cloud computing is a form of computing paradigm where you shift the processing and storage solution away from the node being your laptop or your terminal, and the cloud being the data center or the internet center. For instance, when you open your laptop and you open Google, the thing that you see, the website that you see earlier, it used to be stored in your node. But now it's stored in maybe Gurgaon or Hyderabad, where data centers of Google are.
Is it safe enough? What are the disadvantages of cloud computing?
So it can be prone to hacking, definitely. But then again, sir, the internet community, the whole software community has come together, the open sources come together to identify the vulnerabilities as and when they appear. So nothing can be 100% safe, but cloud computing, in my honest opinion, is prone to hacking somewhat, sir.
Okay. We normally, when our computer becomes dysfunctional, we give it to the raddi wala, kabadi wala, and he takes it for a very small amount,
Okay, sir.
But are there any guidelines? Because I understand that the computer has got some hazardous material.
Yes, sir.
Is it correct?
It is correct, sir. So, for instance, the processing
Is
core.
it proper to sell it to a local kabadi wala? Or?
So it's not, if we give it to local kabadiwala, it definitely is not at all safe, because the processor has some thousands of transistors, and some of them are sometimes the tips of the processing terminal are very sharp. They can get it to, if you break it open, there is a palladium core sometimes, which is also hazardous. And e-waste management rules, we have that in our country, and that ask specifically for recycling of computer equipment. So I think instead of giving it to a kabadiwala, if we have a provision, for instance, if we come up with a Swachh Bharat Abhiyan type computer Abhiyan, where we collect it from the people itself, that would make more sense.
And free of cost, or they pay for it also? No.
So sometimes with computer, for example, I wrote a paper on this artificial intelligence, MapReduce. So MapReduce can use junk computer terminal also.
Are there any guidelines for radioactive waste also?
So I'll think about it for a moment, sir. So there are, but I'm not able to recall at the moment, sir. I'm sorry, sir.
Now, our chairperson asked you something about soft power.
Yes, sir.
Is India a soft state, soft power?
So India has soft power. For instance, recently Mr. S. Jayashankar went to Maldives and Sri Lanka, and we opened a lot of projects there. So that improves our soft power. They see us as a benevolent figure who is helping their development. So definitely, sir, we have soft power.
And what about its foreign policy?
Foreign policy of India.
Oh.
So I think the best representative of that would be the G20 presidency, which said that one big family, Vasudev Kutumbakam. So that also gel wells with the soft power, sir.
Okay. Is that correct to say that after Mr. Modi's coming to power, our foreign policy, our diplomacy have become more assertive now? That was not the case earlier.
So during the tenure of Dr. Manmohan Singh, A lot of initiative in terms of economic diplomacy was started. Pakistan, with which we have so abrasive relation, for the first time we started commerce in a very long time. But with coming with Mr. Narendra Modi, the PM has taken a very active role as an ambassador even to India. He visited so many countries and bought so many on the same plate with India. So I would say it has become assertive and it has become more active.
One
even,
last
sir.
question.
Yes, sir.
India's relationship with its hostile neighbors like Nepal,
Yes, sir.
Pakistan, and China. Can we ever see hostility, the end of hostility?
So it's a tricky question, sir, because with Pakistan and with China, we have a certain antagonism which will be there. The best thing that we can do is to have a diplomacy on the side, have a constant communication on the side, but these hostility will remain same because the ideologies are entirely
There was a
different.
news
sir.
item today that President of China
Yes, sir.
was supervising the deployment of our tanks and all that at LAC.
Yes, sir.
Is that just a mind game or something is going to happen?
So I'm sorry, I did not read this news
it came
in
in the
particular,
today's
sir.
paper.
I'm sorry, sir. But sir, it has to do with definitely if a premier of the country is visiting a border area with India, that will raise brows and will sort of raise questions on the international front. So, thank you so much, sir.
When did you last visit Kashmir Valley?
Kashmir Valley. So in the month of November, sir.
What kind of vibes did you feel? Do they also feel like you that that part of J&K has also benefited from Article 370? And do you see any visible, if I go there today,
Right, sir.
will I find something that has changed ever
Okay,
since
sir.
Article 370 is introduced?
Okay, sir. So I studied in Kashmir from 2012 to 2016 as in NIT Srinagar. Back then, there was so much hostility that in my fourth year, a big brawl broke out in our campus even. And people were out front about this, that we do not want to be a part of India. Even the students, some of the Kashmiri students were of that opinion. But this time when I visited, a lot of people were saying that this year in particular, maybe because of the pandemic, we have seen the maximum footfall of tourism. We have seen, because when your business is not doing well and suddenly you see a very, very big uptick in the business, people are bound to feel happy. So in terms of 370 abrogation, the general sentiment is bad in Kashmir, sir. But then again, economy and business is a very big motivator, and people are definitely seeing the good light that it is improving
So
situation.
tourism, of course, has always been part of Valley.
Yes, sir.
But what more do you see after Article 370? Do you see better roads, better connectivity? Do you see some more hospitals, health structure, education, schools?
100%. So the journey for me to reach my college during engineering used to take 12 hours from Jammu to Kashmir. This time I drove in November, and it took only 7 hours because of Johar Tunnel. And there are multiple other projects which are, for instance, train services. It was almost negligent in Kashmir. Now they have opened multiple trains also. For instance, there is this place Banihal that has direct connectivity now to Srinagar. So in terms of infrastructure, there is a definite improvement. So
Okay. What do you think are good qualities of a diplomat? Your first choice is IFS.
So first thing has to do with negotiation, sir. It is a negotiation heavy job that I believe it is a very big part of that. Dialogue and communication, having a fortitude and temperance, so that would be definitely. And in today's age where digital technology has become an enabler, it's an added plus if you can use data to your advantage, sir.
What about ego?
So
Have you met some diplomats?
So not in person, sir, but I read this book, The Ambassadors Club by Ambassador K.V. Ranjan, and I watched the movie Sergio on Ambassador Sergio de Mello. So that's my
Okay.
impression,
All
sir.
right. What was the origin of 1947-48 war, and what were the provisions of the United Nations Security Council on when India took the matter to UN?
Right, sir. So the war in Kashmir during that time was because the premier of Jammu and Kashmir state, Mr. King Hari Singh, he was not very deft in terms of analyzing the situation, and that led to a lot of tribal people from Kashmir entering the valley in civilian outfit, and so that kind of escalated things. And he knew that if the situation is not handled properly, the whole Kashmir and maybe even Jammu will go to, Pakistan. So that's where he asked Mr. PM Nehru and Sardar Patel to help and SC to 370 article and special instrument. And during that time, Jawaharlal Nehru, the PM Nehru also had this insight that if we take this to UN, to a third party, a lot of bloodshed would be stopped, a lot of hostility would be controlled. So that's my
Okay, so what were the provisions of the UN Security Council to resolve Kashmir?
So the exact, sorry sir, I'm blanking
Okay,
on
please
that.
read
Sorry,
about
sir.
that.
Yes sir, sure.
Now, if you were to find a common point, now this is about Ukraine war.
Yes sir.
It's been going on for almost a year. And as Indian negotiator, you are asked to find ways to bring end to this war. What are the possible points of convergence that you think are there, which can have both sides accept that and bring peace?
So first and foremost, we have to look at the rational solution. Ukraine joining NATO triggered the conflict in the first place, and Moscow is a border city, right? And every government architecture and the infrastructure is in Moscow. So from Ukraine, it's like a 70-kilometer distance from Moscow. So if we can stop the NATO joining of Ukraine, if we can convince them that instead of having a direct membership,
Okay,
maybe
that's
an
one part.
observer.
That's one part.
That's one, sir. And second thing, sir, we have to have a kind of an arrangement where the border states, for instance, Donetsk in Ukraine, that's heavily Russian majority state who speak Russian, who identify with their culture. If we can have a kind of like a buffer sort of territorial arrangement where we won't impose Ukrainian culture on there and Russians won't impose their culture outside of Donetsk and that border area, that would be my second.
Some kind of autonomy.
Sort of autonomy, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. And who do you think, if you have to put your finger on one country, which can be blamed or held responsible for this actually reaching the stage that it has, which would be that country?
So I would say United States, sir.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
NIVRANSHU,
Yes, sir.
what is the meaning of your name?
So it's a Sanskrit word. It means the hue of moon, NIVRANSHU. And metaphorically, it means warmth.
Okay, wonderful. Most of my questions will be from PSIR.
All right,
but
sir.
I'm tempted to ask you, which guitar do you play?
So I started with an acoustic guitar. Now
Okay.
I'm heavily interested and involved with electric guitar.
Electric?
Yes, sir. I'm learning
Which one?
scales.
Have you got a Strat or a...
So
other one?
it's not a Stratocaster. It's by it's Korean company LTD,
Okay.
ESP LTD. It's a metallic guitar, but if I had more money, I would have bought a Stratocaster. So
Okay.
a Strat.
So what kind of pickup it has? Humbuckers?
So humbucker, yes sir, humbucker, that pickup, yes sir,
Who's
dual
your
pickup
Who's your favorite
guitarist.
guitar player?
So I would say John Mayer, because pentatonic scale is a very simple scale, but Mr. Mayer is able to churn out a very
Any particular
complex.
song of John Mayer, most iconic?
So for me personally, slow dancing in a burning room, I play that song a lot. That
And
is my
on
favorite.
the acoustic side?
So on the acoustic side, Neon is something that I like, but I am not very deft at that at the moment.
Have you heard Clapton?
Eric Clapton, yes sir. Layla is a favorite song of mine by Mr. Clapton, sir. I can play that. Yes, sir.
And Mark Knopfler?
No sir, I'm sorry, I'm
Mark
not
Knopfler?
aware. No.
Dire Straits?
Dire Straits, yes sir. Yes sir.
Sultans of Swing?
Yes, Sultans of Swings. Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
Yes, sir.
No more questions on guitar.
All right, sir.
Something, because foreign service is your first preference.
Yes, sir.
Therefore, I have tailored some questions according to that.
Thank you, sir.
Now tell me, do you feel non-alignment movement was an idealist stance or was it a pragmatic decision?
So it was a pragmatic decision, very heavily, rationally implemented choice. because at a situation when India was not very well to do, we were able to churn out a voice for ourselves, and then the whole global south became a part of our
And
camp.
can you cite an example where we could take aid or help from both the parties of Cold War?
Both the parties of Cold War, sir.
Yeah.
So,
Something we took from America and something then from USSR.
right, sir. So, civil nuclear deal, I would say,
No. Of that time.
of
NAM.
that time, NAM. So, I'm blanking, sir. I'm sorry.
No.
Sorry,
No
sir.
problem. Hint. Something to do with the food grains.
Food grains, yes, during the, sir,
PL480.
I'm not sure, sir.
PL480.
Yes, sir. Okay.
And from USSR, the technological assistance, dams and
Yes,
steel
sir.
mills and other
Yes, sir.
things. Okay. Can you identify 6 distinct phases of Indian foreign policy, starting from 1947?
All right, sir. So, from 1947 itself, it was heavily influenced by, because the foreign services itself had a major revamp in 1946. So it was Britishers influenced, colonial influence. But then once Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru took in, we had a very
Just identify the first phase.
All right, sir.
Just the
phase-
years first.
All right. Idealist during Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru. During Mr. Shastri, a more rational
No,
approach.
can you identify the years?
The years.
Yeah,
All right,
47
sir.
to
Okay, sir. 47 till 1965 war.
62.
62 war, I'm sorry,
Okay.
sir. Idealist phase. Then from 62 onwards till Tashkent Agreement during Mr. Shastri,
Okay,
a more
71.
rationalist, 71. And sir, from 71 onwards till 80s, more of a realist approach during Madam Indira Gandhi. And from then on, till Mr. Gujral and then Mr. P.V. Narasimha Rao, more of a commerce-oriented policy, more of a liberal.
So there was one very major event which occurred in 90s.
Yes, sir.
And that made us change our foreign policy instead.
Yes, sir.
What was
Sir,
that event?
I would say LPG reforms.
No,
sir.
90s.
In the 90s.
Dissolution of?
USSR, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. USSR, we lost a very big, I would say, kind of a benefactor who had helped in technological advancement. So that definitely we course corrected. So fifth, sir, I would say economic diplomacy of Dr. Manmohan Singh, and now more of a kind of assertive
Okay.
of Mr.
So
Modi.
globalization is neither a problem nor a solution.
Right, sir.
It is only a process.
Yes, sir.
What is your comment on it?
So I would say, sir, globalization as a process has just increased in recent year, but it has been an ongoing process since ancient times. We used to have visitors from China. So globalization was there, but now it has just increased in frequency, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So NIVRANSHU, we will take you for a few minutes outside in
Sure,
the waiting
sir.
room. We'll
All right,
call
sir.
you back for the feedback.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Come in, sir.
Come. Have a seat.
Thank you, sir.
NIVRANSHU, when is your interview?
So I have not received the dates yet.
And this is the first time you have been.
And this would
you
be
have-
my
you
first
got
interview, sir.
Invitation for
Interview.
civil services interview.
First time, sir.
And how many mocks have you attended so far?
So this would be my fourth mock, sir.
Fourth mock.
Yes, sir.
How do you think you would assess yourself in today's mock?
So I have this tendency to speak very fast sometimes. And so some of the questions I blanked on and I should know it was recent or important to the subject matter. So I would say it was a moderate performance from my side, sir.
NIVRANSHU, let me then tell you, you came across as a very good officer,
Thank you, sir.
and your performance here was very good, but it can be made outstanding. Okay? So your mental alertness was good, and articulation is also absolutely fine. Communication skills also, eye contact, everything, modulation in the voice, everything was fine. And balance of judgment, that was also there. And also your current affairs knowledge was fairly good, but you can prepare more on the current affairs. And since Indian Foreign Service is your preferred option, therefore probably you can give more emphasis on the facts and figures and the policies and the programs right from 1947, the historical background. Understand that foreign policy is your key area. You have done well. Your large number of questions you came out very well. For example, the non-aligned movement, the answers to that. But certain things related to Jammu and Kashmir, 1947, that probably you can study slightly better.
Okay, sir.
Okay, and you were able to critically examine the questions. So analytical skills were also there. Your answers were rational and logical.
Thank you, sir.
And your clarity of thought was there, and confident. You were very confident.
Thank you, sir.
So all these things were very much in your favor. But the aim of all of us is that you ultimately come out successfully with very high percentage of marks, so that you become a civil servant.
Thank you, sir.
So therefore, whatever I am going to talk to you is just by way of bringing about whatever improvement is necessary in terms of knowledge. Your communication skills and attitudes are fine.
Yes, sir.
Let me now come to the areas where they will definitely concentrate their questions on. So Jammu and Kashmir, I asked you Article 370, that may be a question, Article 370. And I also asked you a rather controversial question, that how about the happiness amongst the people. So you came out with a balanced answer, that Jammu has a different state of happiness amongst the people as compared to Kashmir. Then questions will definitely be asked on it becoming a union territory, you see, a union territory, and Ladakh also becoming a union territory. And what exactly do you think the state election should be held shortly or not shortly? So questions relating to the governance in Jammu and Kashmir will be asked.
Yes, sir.
Then questions on political science and international relation. I would suggest that since the date has still not come, you have sufficient time at your disposal.
Yes.
So read a few things. Read a good book on public policy, a good book on constitution, and so as to understand the nuances of a public policy making and how the civil service plays a very important role in that.
Yes, sir.
So there are 6 steps. I'm sure all of you would be knowing: the problem identification to agenda setting, policy formulation, legitimization, implementation. So go through the public and understand the policies of Government of India
Okay, sir.
in respect of the many subjects, many subtopics. It can be environment, it can be women, it can be children, it can be senior citizen, it can be scheduled caste, it can be scheduled tribes. So the policies of Government of India and the schemes and programs, you will find it on Google, everything is there. So they prepare that well.
Okay, sir.
What are the advantages of this public policy? Then what are the acts, enactments governing status of women and protection to women, empowerment of women. So Dowry Prohibition Act and Domestic Violence Act.
Yes.
And one thing, please remember, you may or may not hold any views on that subject, but in the answers you have to behave like a person who is sensitive to the women's empowerment.
Yes, sir.
And reservation for women. Yes, you have to be in support of that. You cannot take the other view.
Yes, sir.
I was taking some classes and of people, so they were not very, some of those, they hold different opinions. But here in the civil services interview, you have to be feminine in your approach.
Yes.
You can't have that.
Yes.
You understand what I'm trying to
Understood,
say? And then about children. So domestic, the Juvenile Justice Act and POCSO Act. Similarly for senior citizen.
Yes.
Then for scheduled tribes, scheduled castes, and handicapped, economically weaker, all the things. Now, coming to the constitution, read through the constitution, as I said, go through the budget. Budget will be out on 1st February, and the economic survey of India.
Okay, sir. Yes.
And also read the principle of good governance.
Is it a book?
Good governance.
Good governance in general?
Yeah, good governance. What are the 8 ingredients of good governance?
UNDP. Okay,
It's
sir.
a concept evolved by World Bank,
Yes, sir.
and it started with Africa and then went on to many countries. And
Okay, sir.
India is now a votary or follower of good governance.
Yes, sir.
So the 8 principles: rule of law, accountability, efficiency, effectiveness, consensus building, participatory, responsiveness, transparency, and
Yes,
so
sir.
on. How it will help in improving the governance, the public governance, improving things in your office, bring down the corruption, okay,
Yes.
make it more responsive. So read that.
Okay, sir.
Also read e-governance. So the role of e-governance, how it has improved matters, whether it is railway reservation, whether it is passport, whether it is e-commerce, or whether it is airline reservation, banking. So everywhere e-governance has left an impact,
Yes, sir.
and particularly during COVID-19. So read that also.
Yes, sir.
And then talking about the foreign policy, since IFS is your preferred service, so many questions may be asked. I would particularly like to tell you that the problems which are being faced by the world, which are now problems without passports in a way. So they don't require passports because the problem are now common to all.
Yes, sir.
So Kofi Annan, as you know, beautifully summed it up that problems without passports require solutions without passports. So the problem of climate change,
Yes, sir.
COVID-19, SARS, AIDS, then migration and terrorism and drugs. So what are the problems which are being faced at the international level?
Yes.
What is the role of multinational corporation in influencing the policies, the national policies? It plays a very important role. What is the role of the United Nations institution in framing and modifying and fine-tuning the policies of the nations?
Yes, sir.
You know, WHO,
Yes, sir. World Bank,
yeah,
IMF.
so
Yes, sir.
UNICEF, UNCTAD, ILO.
Yes, sir.
So they play a very important part. Then Millennium Development Goals and
SDGs.
SDGs. And then the Russia-Ukraine war. You have to understand what is that is advantageous to India, what is that is not advantageous to India. So that is why did India not take sides? Why did it not criticize Russia like many other countries did?
Yes, sir.
So what is that part of the our foreign policy which still continues from the NAM days, that is preventing India from taking sides? Because now it is a kind of a one-to-one, there are no permanent friends and foes.
No,
so there are now no friends and enemies, there are sometimes frenemies also.
Yes, sir.
At times it may be friend, at times it may be enemy. Relation with United States is one such example.
Yes, sir.
And then talking about the economy of China, how it has developed so fast.
Yes.
And it has overtaken everyone. It is about to now become number one in a way in the world. So what should be our stance towards China, keeping in view in mind that it may ultimately, as it has affected our policy in a big way, economy in a big way. So our relation with China are very, very crucial.
Yes.
Then India and its neighbors. So our why there has been a kind of a love-hate relationship now with even with Nepal.
Yes.
So what are the factors which have led to this kind of a slightly the interest, the relation becoming sour to some extent?
Yes, sir.
And then what is the relation with Sri Lanka, Myanmar, and also with Pakistan?
Okay, sir.
And then talking about certain things connected with the national scene. So what are the indicators, economic indicators of this country now, having faced 3 things in succession: the demonetization, the GST, and then COVID-19.
Okay, sir.
What efforts has the government of India made? Remember one thing, I'll intervene. 3 things the panel is always going to look towards. So in no way your answer should depict anything to the contrary. Number 1, you have to be secular, you have to be rational, and you have to be ethical.
Okay, sir.
So if you fulfill these things, I can assure you that you stand a fairly good chance if you are strong in your knowledge, in skills and attitude. So this is the fundamental thing which you should remember.
Okay,
So what are the economic indicators? the monetary policy, the fiscal policy, and the balance of payment position, the trade with different countries, okay, and the soft power was one question which we talked about. The effects of geopolitics and geoeconomics which had started playing. So international ethics have gone to a background now, more or less, though our Prime Minister displayed that also in the COVID diplomacy,
Yes.
so nationalism and export of COVID
Yes.
medicine. So these are the things which will come. And then there are other nations also, what exactly, the regional groupings are also, read those regional groupings
Okay, sir.
also.
Yes.
Then talking about certain other things, I would like to mention that things like relation between the three wings of our democracy,
Yes, sir.
that is
Judiciary.
legislative, judiciary and executive, privatization of public sector undertakings, PPP model, why we are moving towards privatization, why is it necessary, and then understand the democratic decentralization, 73rd, 74th Amendment,
Yes.
Panchayati Raj institution, Zilla Parishad institution. Also understand the role of collector, what exactly, so in Jammu and Kashmir it will be deputy commissioner.
Yes, sir.
More common word is deputy commissioner. So deputy commissioner, collector, district magistrate, same person. You must know the roles which it has got. And then issues like reservation of for women in the Lok Sabha and in the Legislative Assembly, should it be done or not to be done? You will always support that.
Yes, sir.
Whenever there is a controversial question, you will always give both the sides of the issue and then come up with the official version that this is what I support. Do not take it out. Do not criticize the government in any way.
Okay, sir.
Okay. And lastly, but not the least, I would like to mention the corporate social responsibility, role of SEBI, role of Reserve Bank of India. These are some of the things because Nirav Modi and Vijay Mallya and all these things, happening.
Yes.
The NPA is rising in the banks. It has become, you see, we are now laying more and more emphasis on the economy part.
Yes.
And that is why the economic services are also becoming very important. Indian Revenue Service, perhaps in United States of America, Indian Revenue Service is regarded as one of the most important
So
services.
the IRS, yes, sir.
So now generalists, we are moving towards specialists. So therefore, you must know everything about the economy of this country, Atmanirbhar Bharat, and how the government is trying to look inwards, become self-independent in all matters.
All right, sir.
So that's about the summary of what I would like you to study. You have all the time in the world to study that. As I said, your knowledge is very good, your communication skills is very good, and your attitude is also excellent.
Thank you, sir.
And I would just ask you if you have any questions to ask.
So I would like to ask, I don't want to take too much time, but
No
sir,
problem. Go ahead.
so sometimes I have this tendency to give an example while giving a response, and it kind of stretches the answer a bit.
It's always very good thing to give examples
Yes.
because that supports your answer. By giving example, you are in a position to, in fact, it makes more impressive.
All right, sir.
But keep it within the time limit because you have to cover as many questions as possible. But giving example is a very good thing.
All right, sir.
If anyone has told you to the contrary, please leave that notion. Examples must be given.
Okay, sir. One last ask, sir. Sir, the tie, like, is
It's
it
fine, but your tip of the tie should touch the belt.
Okay, sir. I'll keep that.
That
in
should
mind,
be the
sir.
length.
All right, sir.
Okay, you put a double knot.
All right. Okay, okay, sir.
With the right,
When, sir.
the right kind of
When-
dividing the thing.
All right,
It'll
sir.
come.
Okay, sir.
You must shave
Thank you. Yes,
on
sir.
that day.
All right, sir.
That's the only
And no jewelry.
no change.
All right, sir.
No kada, no jewelry, no religious symbols.
100%, sir. All right. Thank you. Thanks a lot, sir.
You will
Thank
do
you
very
so
well.
much.
Our best wishes for your success and on getting a very high percentage of marks and eventually become a civil servant.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks a lot. Have a nice day.
Unacademy. Let's crack it.